I watched her apply her lipstick in the mirror, that perfect shade of crimson she'd worn for 25 years. Helena caught my gaze in the reflection and smiled. I smiled back, the devoted husband, while my stomach churned with acid. "Are you nervous about your speech tonight?" she asked, adjusting a diamond earring worth more than what most people in our city made in a month. "Not at all," I replied, straightening my bow tie. "I've been preparing for this moment for a long time. 6 months, to be exact. Since the night I found the vials." Helena stood and smoothed her silver gown, custom Vera Wang, because nothing but the best would do for the face of the Northbridge Women's Shelter and the darling of our city's philanthropy scene. I offered my arm, and she took it. To anyone watching, we were the perfect couple celebrating our silver anniversary. 25 years of marriage, 25 years of lies. "Let's not keep our guests waiting," I said. As we descended the grand staircase of the Hartwick Hotel, applause erupted from the ballroom. 200 of Chicago's elite, board members, charity donors, business associates, and a carefully curated selection of media personalities, all gathered to celebrate our enduring love story. If only they knew what I knew. I met Helena Campbell when I was 28, fresh out of business school and hungry to make my mark. She was beautiful, ambitious, and came from the right family. I was building my investment firm from scratch and needed connections. We complemented each other perfectly, at least on paper. I fell hard. Helena was enigmatic, cultured, and seemed to adore me. When she said yes to my proposal after just 8 months of dating, I thought I was the luckiest man alive. The early years were good. We built our lives together, had our 2 children, Emma and Jacob, and watched my firm, Grayson Capital, grow from a small office above a coffee shop to one of the most respected investment companies in the Midwest. Helena embraced her role as my wife with a kind of theatrical grace. She hosted the right parties, joined the right boards, chaired the right charity galas. She was especially passionate about the Northbridge Women's Shelter becoming its most prominent fundraiser and public face. "These women need advocates with power," she would say during interviews. "They need to know someone cares." I believed her. I believed everything, until the headaches started. It began subtly, a dull pain behind my eyes after dinner. Then fatigue, brain fog. My doctor ran tests, found elevated levels of certain compounds that shouldn't have been there, but couldn't pinpoint a cause. "Could be environmental," he suggested. "Maybe something in your diet? Something in my diet? Like the tea Helena insisted I drink each night for my stress levels." I didn't connect the dots immediately, but when I caught her on the phone one evening, speaking in hushed tones on our balcony, something about the secretive nature of her conversation triggered an instinct. "Needs to happen gradually," she was saying. "Too fast, and there will be questions. Yes, I know the policy details. 10 million is enough for us to disappear completely." I backed away silently, my world tilting on its axis. That night I searched our bedroom while she attended a charity function. In the false bottom of her jewelry box, a place I had never had reason to explore in all our years together, I found them. 3 small vials with no labels. I didn't confront her. I didn't let on that I knew. Instead, I began my own quiet investigation. "Peter, darling, everyone's watching," Helena whispered, squeezing my arm as we made our entrance into the ballroom. Indeed they were. Faces turned toward us, glasses raised in our honor. The room was spectacular. Crystal chandeliers reflecting golden light, tables adorned with white orchids and silver candelabras, a string quartet playing softly in the corner. A massive screen behind the stage displayed a slideshow of our life together. Wedding photos, family vacations, charity galas, all manufactured moments of a counterfeit marriage. I spotted Daniel Morris, Helena's charity consultant, among the guests. He averted his eyes when I looked his way. 6'2", early 40s, with the kind of manufactured rugged handsomeness that comes from expensive gym memberships and designer stubble. For the past 8 months, he'd been more than Helena's consultant. Much more. The investigator I hired had proven that with painfully graphic photographic evidence. Helena leaned close to my ear. I invited the editor from Chicago Society magazine. This could mean a cover feature. Always thinking about appearances, always calculating. We took our places at the head table. Our children were seated beside us. Emma, 23, home from law school for the occasion, and Jacob, 20, on break from his sophomore year at Northwestern. They had no idea what was coming. That was the only part of tonight that pained me. I'd tried to protect them from the truth for as long as possible. The evening proceeded according to plan. Dinner was served. Champagne flowed. Old friends gave toasts, recounting sanitized memories of our perfect union. Helena played her part flawlessly, dabbing at fabricated tears, laughing at the right moments, clutching my hand on the table where everyone could see. All the while, I felt the weight of the flash drive in my pocket. 6 months of evidence, 6 months of planning. As dessert was being served, Helena's friend Margaret approached our table, placing a manicured hand on Helena's shoulder. "Darling, did you tell Peter about the surprise donation the shelter received last week? $500,000 anonymous. The board thinks it might be that tech billionaire who moved to Lincoln Park." Helena smiled modestly. "I may have made a few calls. You know how persuasive I can be." "You're an angel," Margaret gushed. "Those poor women don't know how lucky they are to have you." I watched Helena's face as Margaret walked away. The momentary flash of contempt before her mask slipped back into place. I'd seen that look before, when she thought no one was watching. The same look she'd had on her face when I overheard her on the phone with one of the shelter directors. "Just keep them looking presentable when the cameras are there," she'd said. "I don't need to hear their pathetic stories. Just make sure they seem grateful." The final piece had fallen into place when I gained access to Helena's private email account. The messages between her and Daniel were explicit in more ways than one. "He's boring, predictable. The doctor says his symptoms match perfectly with arsenic poisoning, untraceable in small doses. The insurance is $10 million. One sip at a time, he'll fade. And I'll play the grieving widow at his funeral, then meet you in Tuscany. 2 months of black dresses and sad faces, then freedom." The night I read those words, something broke inside me. Not just my heart, but something more fundamental. My faith in humanity, perhaps. I'd loved this woman for 25 years, given her everything, believed in her goodness. It was time for the truth to come out. The moment arrived. I stood up, champagne glass in hand. The room quieted. 25 years, I began, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "That's a long time to share your life with someone." Helena beamed up at me, the picture of adoring wife. I wondered if she'd practiced that look in the mirror. In those years, Helena and I have built something special. A family. A legacy. I paused, letting my gaze sweep across the room. But what is a legacy without honesty, without loyalty? A slight furrow appeared between Helena's brows. This wasn't the speech we'd rehearsed. "I'd like to propose a toast," I continued, "to loyalty, love, and the truth." I nodded to the AV technician, a former military intelligence officer who now worked for the private investigation firm I'd hired. The soft music faded. The screen behind me changed. Our wedding day appeared. Helena in white, me looking young and earnest. Then Emma's birth, Jacob's first steps, family Christmases, beach vacations, a highlight reel of our manufactured happiness. Then the screen went black. A moment of silence. And then, Helena's voice filled the room. "He's boring, predictable. The insurance is $10 million. One sip at a time, he'll fade." A few nervous chuckles rippled through the crowd. Some people thought it was a joke, a setup for something sentimental. Then her voice again. "And I'll play the grieving widow at his funeral, then meet you in Tuscany." The room fell deadly still. I watched Helena's face drain of color. Her eyes darted around wildly, trying to gauge who had heard what was happening. Too late, everyone had heard. I turned to face our guests, my voice clear and controlled. "What Helena didn't know," I said, "is that I found the vials 6 months ago." The screen now showed images of the small bottles I'd discovered, alongside laboratory test results confirming their contents. I switched them with harmless syrup. Then I hired a private investigator. More images appeared. Helena entering a hotel with Daniel Morris. Bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts, emails, voice memos. The full exposé of their plan to murder me and abscond with my life insurance. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. I saw Emma put her hand to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. Jacob sat frozen, his face a mask of shock and disbelief. "You may know Helena as a generous donor to the Northbridge Women's Shelter," I continued, as the evidence of her betrayal played out behind me. "What you didn't know is how she mocked the women there, calling them pathetic, manipulative little victims in recordings I also found." The screen showed transcripts of Helena's conversations, her true feelings about the charity work that had earned her so much public adoration. The final blow came when I played the recording of her conversation with Daniel, planning my slow death by poison. "It has to look natural. The doctor thinks it's early-onset dementia. Perfect cover. No one will suspect a thing." By now, Helena had risen from her seat, her face contorted with fury and panic. "Peter, this is insane! You fabricated all of this!" Her voice was shrill, cracking with desperation. "Daniel, tell them this is all lies!" But Daniel Morris was already backing toward the exit, abandoning her as quickly as rats flee a sinking ship. I continued calmly. "So I rerouted the insurance policy. Upon my death, the full payout, $10 million, was designated to the very women she despised at the Northbridge shelter." I nodded toward the back of the room, where 2 police officers had entered, accompanied by a stern-faced woman I recognized as the district attorney. "I've provided all evidence to the proper authorities," I said, as the officers approached Helena, "including the arsenic she's been administering to me for the past year." Helena's composure shattered completely. "You can't prove anything. This is slander. I'll sue you for everything you have." Officer Ramirez, a woman I'd met several times during the investigation, stepped forward. "Helena Grayson, you are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit fraud, and embezzlement from the Northbridge Women's Shelter Foundation." That last charge was an unexpected bonus that the forensic accountants had uncovered. Nearly $2 million of donor funds redirected to Helena's personal accounts over the years. As the officer recited Helena's rights, I raised my still full champagne glass. "To the truth," I said quietly, and took a sip. The 6 months leading up to this night had been the most difficult of my life. After discovering Helena's plot, I could have confronted her immediately. I could have filed for divorce. I could have gone to the police with my suspicions. But none of those options would have delivered the justice she deserved. None would have exposed the true Helena Grayson to the world. My first step had been to protect myself. I stopped drinking the tea she prepared, dumping it down the sink when she wasn't looking. I began collecting samples of everything she gave me, storing them as evidence. I installed hidden cameras in our home, documenting her adding clear liquid from the vials to my food and drinks. I consulted with doctors who specialized in toxicology, confirming that while damage had been done, I could recover with proper treatment. My symptoms improved miraculously, though I continued to feign occasional confusion and weakness to maintain Helena's confidence in her plan. Next came the private investigator, a former FBI agent named Sofia Martinez who specialized in domestic cases. She and her team tracked Helena's movements, bugged her car, monitored her phone calls, and hacked her email accounts. With proper legal authorization, given the nature of the crime being investigated. The evidence mounted: Helena and Daniel's affair, their escape plan, the offshore accounts they'd established, even the villa they'd purchased in Tuscany under false names. Most damning were the recordings of Helena discussing my murder so casually, as if she were planning a dinner party rather than the death of her husband of 25 years. The third phase involved building my case legally. I met with prosecutors, showing them the evidence I'd gathered. They agreed that the most prudent approach was to allow Helena to continue her attempts, under careful monitoring, in order to build an airtight case. "She needs to believe she's succeeding," District Attorney Karen Wilson had advised. "The moment she suspects you know, the evidence becomes circumstantial." So I played the loving husband. I pretended not to notice the strange taste in my food. I acted increasingly forgetful and weak, all while documenting every attempt on my life. The final piece was changing my life insurance policy without Helena's knowledge. This required some legal maneuvering, but with evidence of her murderous intent, I was able to remove her as beneficiary and redirect the funds to a trust benefiting the Northbridge Women's Shelter. A poetic justice that would have meant little to Helena if she'd simply been arrested one ordinary day. No, she needed to be exposed in front of the society she so desperately coveted. She needed to fall from the highest pedestal. Hence, the anniversary party, the grand stage for her ultimate humiliation. Chaos erupted in the ballroom as Helena was led away in handcuffs, still screaming denials and threats. Several guests had their phones out, recording the spectacle. By morning, the footage would be all over social media and news outlets. I made my way to Emma and Jacob, who sat shell-shocked at our table. "Dad," Emma began, her voice trembling. "Did Mom really try to—" "Yes," I said simply, sitting down between them. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. I wanted to protect you both until I had no choice." Jacob's face hardened. "All those times she was working late for the shelter." "I know this is a lot to process," I said, "but I need you to understand that none of this is your fault. Your mother's choices were her own." I watched Helena being escorted through the ballroom doors, her silver gown shimmering under the chandeliers one last time. Our eyes met briefly across the distance. In that moment, I saw no remorse in her gaze, only cold fury at having been outsmarted. Daniel Morris had vanished completely, no doubt already on his way to the airport. His escape wouldn't last long. The authorities had been alerted, his passport flagged. Margaret, Helena's closest friend and fellow board member at the shelter, approached our table, her face ashen. "Peter, I had no idea," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "All these years, the things she said about those women behind closed doors. I feel sick thinking about it." "She fooled everyone," I replied, myself included, for far too long. "What will happen to the shelter's reputation?" "The funding?" I stood up, straightening my jacket. "I'll be making a statement tomorrow. The shelter will continue its work with proper oversight. Those women deserve better than to suffer because of Helena's actions." As guests began to leave, murmuring in shocked clusters, I noticed several reporters lingering, hungry for comments. I nodded to my PR consultant, who had been briefed weeks ago about tonight's revelations. She would handle the media narrative, ensuring that the focus remained on Helena's crimes rather than sensationalizing my family's pain. Before leaving, I approached the stage one last time. The evidence of Helena's betrayal still played on the screen behind me in a silent loop. I gestured to the technician to shut it down. "That's enough," I said. "The truth has been told." The following weeks unfolded exactly as I had anticipated. Helena's arrest became national news. "Socialite tries to murder husband, exposed at anniversary party," screamed the headlines. The footage from the ballroom went viral, with millions of views across social media platforms. Her reputation disintegrated overnight. The boards of directors from her various charities publicly severed ties, issuing statements expressing their shock and dismay. Former friends denied ever having been close to her. The social circles she had so carefully cultivated closed ranks against her, desperate to avoid association with her disgrace. Daniel Morris was apprehended trying to cross the Canadian border with fake identification. When faced with the mountain of evidence against him, he quickly turned on Helena, offering to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. His betrayal was the final blow to her defense strategy. The financial fallout was catastrophic for her. Forensic accountants discovered that she had been embezzling from multiple charities, not just the women's shelter. Her assets were frozen pending investigation. Civil lawsuits piled up from donors claiming they had been defrauded. Her bail was denied due to flight risk. The judge, a woman who had once presented Helena with a humanitarian award, looked down from the bench with undisguised contempt during the arraignment. I made a single public statement, carefully crafted to position myself not as a victim seeking vengeance, but as someone committed to justice and truth. 25 years ago, I made vows based on trust and love. When that trust was broken in the most profound way possible, I had a choice: to become bitter, or to ensure that something positive emerged from this betrayal. The $10 million that was to be the profit from my murder will now support the women at Northbridge Shelter. Women who, unlike my wife, truly deserve a second chance at life. The statement was picked up by every major news outlet, earning me public sympathy while further cementing Helena's image as a monster. Emma and Jacob struggled with the revelations as expected. I arranged for family therapy sessions, giving them space to process their anger and grief. Initially, they wanted nothing to do with their mother, refusing her calls from jail. Later, Jacob agreed to a supervised visit, only to confront her with questions she couldn't answer. "Did you ever actually love any of us?" he had asked her. According to the social worker present, Helena had no response. 6 months after the anniversary party, I sat in my office at Grayson Capital, reviewing the quarterly reports. The company had not only survived the scandal, but thrived, as clients and partners rallied around me. My assistant knocked and entered with the day's mail. "The final divorce papers came through," she said, placing the envelope on my desk. "And you have that speaking engagement at the shelter at 4. I nodded. "Thank you, Claire." After she left, I opened the envelope. 25 years of marriage, dissolved in a few pages of legal terminology. I signed where indicated and set it aside to be returned to my lawyer. Helena had fought the divorce viciously from her jail cell, claiming temporary insanity, claiming I had fabricated evidence, claiming anything that might help her case. None of it worked. The evidence was too overwhelming, her recorded words too damning. I checked my watch and gathered my notes for the speaking engagement. Over the past months, I had become actively involved with the Northbridge Women's Shelter, not just as a donor, but as an advocate. My experience had given me an unexpected platform to speak about domestic abuse from a different perspective. The shelter had been renovated and expanded using funds from the trust I'd established. The director, a no-nonsense woman named Valerie who had survived abuse herself, had implemented strict financial controls and transparency measures to prevent any future exploitation. As I drove to the shelter, I thought about Helena, now serving the first year of a 20-year sentence for attempted murder and fraud. According to prison sources, she was not adjusting well. The same women she had mocked, domestic abuse survivors, were now her fellow inmates, and word had spread quickly about who she was and what she had done. The hierarchy inside women's prisons was unforgiving to those who preyed on vulnerable populations. I felt no satisfaction in her suffering, only a sense of closure. The slow-acting poison she had administered had gradually leached from my system, just as her toxic presence had been excised from my life. At the shelter, I was greeted warmly by staff and residents alike. The building was bright and welcoming, a far cry from the sterile, photo-op-ready facility Helena had cultivated for her social media moments. "Mr. Grayson," Valerie said, shaking my hand firmly, "we've had tremendous response to the program you funded. 3 more women have completed their education certificates this month alone." "That's excellent news," I replied, "and please call me Peter." She led me to the community room where about 30 women had gathered for the presentation. These were women rebuilding their lives after escaping situations not unlike my own, relationships built on deception and control. As I took my place at the podium, I saw not pity in their eyes, but recognition, understanding. We had all been betrayed by those we trusted most. We had all had to find the courage to walk away and start again. "My story begins, like many of yours, with trust," I started, and with the slow realization that the person I trusted most was orchestrating my destruction. I spoke for nearly an hour, sharing details of my experience that hadn't made it into the news reports. The gradual gaslighting, the isolation from friends who might have noticed something was wrong, the moments of doubt when I questioned my own perceptions. When I finished, the questions came. Thoughtful, incisive queries about recognizing the signs of betrayal, about gathering evidence, about rebuilding after trust has been shattered. One woman at the back raised her hand. "Do you regret exposing her so publicly? Wouldn't it have been easier to just divorce her quietly?" I considered the question carefully. "Justice and vengeance are different things," I replied. "What I sought wasn't personal revenge, but accountability. Helena wasn't just betraying me. She was betraying these charitable organizations, the donors who trusted her, and most importantly, the women she claimed to champion while secretly despising." The woman nodded, satisfied with the answer. After the session, as I was preparing to leave, a reporter from the Tribune approached me. She had been covering Helena's trial and had attended the presentation. "Mr. Grayson, do you have any comment on your ex-wife's recent appeal being denied?" she asked, recorder in hand. "I've said all I intend to say about Helena," I replied. "My focus now is on moving forward and ensuring that the shelter continues its vital work." "One last question," she persisted. "In your presentation, you mentioned raising a toast on the night you exposed her. What exactly were you toasting to?" I smiled slightly, remembering the crystal flute in my hand, the moment of truth unfolding. "Some people toast to love," I said. I toasted to truth, and that made all the difference. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The betrayal had nearly destroyed me. The anger had nearly consumed me. But in the end, it had also freed me. Freed me from a marriage built on lies. Freed me from slow poisoning that would have eventually taken my life. Freed me to find purpose in helping others escape their own toxic situations. Helena had wanted to be the grieving widow, to play the victim one last time before disappearing into a new life built on my death. Instead, she had become a cautionary tale, her name synonymous with fraud and deception. And I had become not a victim, but a survivor. Not bitter, but purposeful. I pulled into my driveway, noticing Emma's car already parked there. She had mentioned bringing dinner, a new tradition we'd started to rebuild our family bonds. Jacob would join us when he could, though his studies kept him busy. Inside, my daughter was setting the table, her law books spread across the counter. She looked up when I entered, her smile genuine if still touched by the sadness that lingered in all of us. "How was your talk?" she asked. "Meaningful," I replied. "How's the case study coming along?" "Actually," she said, "I've decided to specialize in family law, specifically cases involving financial abuse and fraud. Professor Jenkins thinks I have a unique perspective." I felt a surge of pride. From Helena's betrayal, something positive had emerged. Emma was channeling her pain into purpose, just as I had tried to do. "Your mother would hate that," I observed with a small smile. Emma laughed. a sound I had feared I might never hear again after the night of revelations. "I know," she said. "That's partly why I'm doing it." We sat down to dinner, father and daughter, survivors of a storm that had threatened to drown us both. Outside, the sun was setting on another day of our new, truthful reality. Some days were still hard. Some wounds would take years to heal completely. But we were alive. We were moving forward. And most importantly, we were free from the web of lies Helena had woven around us for so many years. The truth, bitter as it had been to swallow, had indeed set us free. 1 year to the day after the anniversary party, I returned to the Hartwick Hotel. Not for a celebration this time, but for a charity gala benefiting the Northbridge Women's Shelter and its expanded programs. The same ballroom, now transformed with different decorations, different faces. Valerie stood at the podium announcing the shelter's accomplishments. 57 women successfully rehoused, 32 completed educational programs, 15 new jobs secured. None of this would have been possible, she concluded, without the Peter Grayson Truth Fund. Applause rippled through the crowd as I was invited to say a few words. I declined with a gentle shake of my head. My story had been told. This night belonged to the women who had fought their own battles, won their own victories. As I sipped water, never champagne, not anymore, I thought about Helena, still in prison with 19 years remaining on her sentence. Her final appeal had been denied last month. Daniel Morris had received 15 years for his role in the conspiracy, his testimony against Helena earning him a slightly reduced sentence. Their offshore accounts had been seized, the villa in Tuscany sold at auction, all proceeds directed to the shelter's endowment fund. Justice had been served, cold and complete. A young woman approached my table, her hands clasped nervously before her. I recognized her as one of the shelter's success stories, a former resident who now worked as their outreach coordinator. "Mr. Grayson," she said, "I just wanted to thank you personally. Before I came to Northbridge, I didn't think I'd ever escape my situation. Now I have my own apartment, a job I love, and I'm helping other women find their way out too." "You did the hard part yourself," I replied. "You found the courage to leave." She smiled. "We have a saying at the shelter now, inspired by your story. When someone is afraid to take that first step, we tell them, 'Toast to your truth.' That makes all the difference." I nodded, unexpectedly moved by her words. From the worst betrayal of my life had come a legacy I never anticipated, a mantra of empowerment for others facing their own moments of truth. As the gala continued around me, I felt for the first time in many years a sense of genuine peace. Not happiness exactly. That would take more time. But peace. The kind that comes from knowing that even the darkest deceptions can be brought to light, and that truth, however painful, is always worth fighting for. Helena had wanted to be the star of a tragedy she authored, the grieving widow, the sympathetic figure. Instead, she had become the villain in a story of justice served. And I had become not what she intended, a silent victim, a footnote in her narrative, but the author of my own next chapter. A chapter built not on vengeance or bitterness, but on truth. And that, as it turned out, had indeed made all the difference. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment below. Your support helps the algorithm push my content further. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps me keep creating more stories for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.